local campaign, and thank you for joining us for our debate today featuring the candidates in Kanata North, Ward 4. I'm going to introduce the candidates to you in just a moment, but first, let me quickly walk through the rules for this debate. We're going to start with opening statements from all of the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to speak directly to you, the voters, and we drew the order for those opening statements at random just before our telecast. Then we'll move to a series of debates about the important issues in Ward 4 and throughout the City of Ottawa. In each case, I'll start the discussion by asking one candidate a specific question. That candidate will have 45 seconds to respond on his or her own. Then we'll open it up to several minutes of debate from all the candidates. And at the end of that discussion, we'll go back to the candidate to whom the question was originally directed, and he or she will have 30 seconds to wrap up on that topic. We'll move through a number of different topics that way, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements. Once again, 1 minute in length, and we'll do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. So let's introduce the candidates who are seeking your vote in the municipal election on October 22nd in Kanata North. They are David Gourlay, Loren Neufeld, Matt Muirhead, and Jenna Sudds. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here for the debate. There is one other candidate in Kanata North in this election campaign. It is Philip Blodeau. He was not able to join us for the debate. So we'll go to the opening statements now. David Gourlay, you're first. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mark, and for Rogers 22 for hosting us, and welcome to my Kanata North neighbours who are tuning in. Thank you for participating. My name is David Gourlay. I'm running to be councillor for Kanata North because I am a product of a community that has historically put people first. I'm very familiar with public service. It runs strong in our family. I've been on the Ottawa Public Library Board, managing a budget of just under $50 million. I've been on the Ottawa Community Housing Foundation Board. I've played leadership roles across our community, co-founding the Ottawa Champions Baseball Club, as well as the Miracle League of Ottawa. I strongly believe in public service. I have a passion for community. I believe a councillor is a convener, an enabler, and a champion. What I've heard at the doors across Kanata North and over the summer is that you're looking for a leader with a proven track record of delivering results, and that is why I'm ready to serve you in Kanata North.
All right, thank you. Next is Loren Neufeld. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, and thank you for Rogers 22 for having us here. I just want to say that my name is Loren Neufeld. I'm running for councillor for Ward 4, Kanata North. One of the reasons I'm wanting to run is for accessibility and for a better transit system. We are completely underfunded in regards to policing as well. I'd like to see that changed. I'd like to see more buses and more frequent buses, as I, just like many of you, standing out at the street curb waiting for that bus, especially on those cold days. I want to see that more and more within Kanata North. I'm originally from Saskatchewan, and I've always learned to work hard and to take anything you can take and make it the best you can make it. So that's why I'm looking for your vote for the upcoming election.
All right, thank you. Matt Muirhead, you're next. You have 1 minute as well. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mark. My name is Matt Muirhead. I'm a father of 3 children. Charlotte, who's almost 16, that scares me to death. Francesca, who's 12, and Magnus, who is just turned 10. I'm a high school teacher. I've been teaching with the Ottawa Catholic School Board for 18 years. And in my free time, I've also been president of 2 community associations. I live in Kanata North, and I've been president of the Briarbrook Morgans Grant Community Association over the years with other positions in tow. And then I was president of the Kanata Lakes Community Association as well. I was the runner-up in the 2014 municipal election against the indomitable Mary Ann Wilkinson, who, as you see, is retiring this time, so we have an opportunity to serve, all of us. And I just want to congratulate all the candidates for putting their names forward, because I know what it takes, the time, the sacrifice, the money, and the risk of putting your name forward for this kind of a position. And so I congratulate all of them, and I look forward to serving you as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And finally, the opening statement from Jenna Sudds. Go ahead.
Terrific. Thank you, Mark. I'm a mother, a community leader, an economist, and a tech enthusiast at heart. 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to build the Kanata North Business Association from the ground up. I've also, for the last 8 years, served on the board and chaired the Kanata Food Cupboard. I've always been very involved in my community and would love the opportunity to serve as your councillor. There's 3 areas that I would like to focus my energy on. The first is how we move. That means a commitment to LRT, better bus service, and investment in our roads and our walkways. How we continue to grow as a community is a concern, and ensuring that new neighborhoods are connected and protect our green space. And lastly, how we're going to thrive. And that means ensuring we support job growth and adopt new technologies to serve our community. These are my priorities for you if given the opportunity to serve.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all the candidates. We're going to move into some debates now about some of the important topics in this municipal election campaign. I'll start with a question to David Gourley. You'll have 45 seconds on your own, and then we'll open it up to everyone for some debate. Let's talk about LRT, light rail. In the past few days, of course, we've learned about further delays. But I think for the residents of Kanata, it feels like there's a really long delay before light rail is going to come to your community. So did West End councillors fail to adequately fight for their community to get light rail sooner?
I think, Mark, the opportunity for us to have light rail in Kanata is very powerful. But with now 2 delays, we have to call into question whether or not light rail is not so much a priority, but how best can we position light rail for our future. We have aging infrastructure and roads we need to address immediately as we await light rail. It's very important for us as a community to come together and build a very compassionate as well as professional business case, including business, including the community, including the BIAs, including the social service organizations, to understand the value of light rail over the long term and ensure that we can move around our community, within our community, and to other places much quicker.
Okay, it's open to everyone now.
Sure. LRT, hands down, is one of the most important and largest infrastructure investments that we're making in this city, and Kanata must be included. I have worked with the Business Association for the last 5 years. I've been at every public and business consultation on this file, and we need to do better. We need to ensure that we get LRT quicker. We deserve the service, and I'm willing to work hard to make it happen.
I think the short answer, Mark, is that yes, they failed. When I ran in 2014, I was the only voice in Kanata North, and indeed the entire West End, who was crying out for light rail to Kanata, that we be included in the plan. When I saw that we had been chopped out of it, I was on CBC Radio and CFRA and other media outlets decrying the plan because it was leaving out 160,000 people in the West End. That's a small city right there. That service should have been coming here, but at the time, Marianne Wilkinson poo-pooed me and said we just need more buses. The same I heard from Kanata South Councillor Alan Hubley. I think we just need a stronger voice in the West End that also provides the logic for the argument. Right now, we could fund from Moody to Terry Fox in 2023 for $710 million. Getting it to Terry Fox makes it an actual usable transit system. Putting it at Moody in 2023 does nothing. It will in fact extend commute times. You have to take a bus to the park and ride, a bus from the park and ride down to Moody, then an escalator, or however they set up that station, because there's no park and ride there. So then you've got to, and you hope that you're at one of the stops coming off downtown, which is very often not the case. People work all over the city. If you have to go south down Bank Street, God help you, it's going to take you many, many stops to get there. I think we need to actually take action, work with our provincial and federal partners, fund it at least for that first bit to Terry Fox. Then we can talk about getting it to Palladium or the Canadian Tire Centre, and then we can talk about getting it to Hazeline or Stittsville. That's my feeling.
So Mark, in regards to the OC Transpo thing, none of the candidates here take public transit. They all drive. There's only one of us that actually takes it on a daily basis. And LRT, yes, does it need to come to Kanata sooner? I agree. Do we need to deal with the bus system now? Yes, we need to increase the frequencies as well as the number of buses. We need to increase the amount of shelters that are there, because there are many shelters and stops that aren't given shelters. So in the middle of the rain, in the middle of the snow, people are getting drenched. They're in there. They don't care about LRT in 2031. They want to fix the buses now. We do need to increase the pressure on to get the LRT at Kanata. I absolutely agree. But we do need to focus on getting more buses and a better bus system in place right now.
Lorne, with greatest respect, I think the problem there is that I have taken transit many times to work. My commute time by car is 12 minutes. I teach in Stittsville. I live in Kanata North. Piece of cake. The trouble there is that if you take a bus, it's an hour and 15. And this is why people aren't taking it. It's why I don't personally take it. Not to mention the uncomfortableness of the buses. I'm 6'1" and a bit. My knees are up against the metal. The seating isn't arranged adequately. And the routes are terrible. I've heard that sometimes buses aren't even showing up. I've heard about rudeness on the buses. crammed like sardines in a can trying to come downtown and home in the afternoon is totally unacceptable.
Oh yes, I absolutely agree. But unfortunately, there are some of us that don't have that luxury of having a vehicle to drive back and forth. You don't want me on the roads. I can guarantee you that. You don't want a blind guy driving. But with that being said, we need to work on that frequency. We need to work on the buses actually showing up. We need better routes. And, you know, it takes me 21 minutes by car, according to my Google Home, every morning. But in reality, it takes me an hour and 25 minutes on the bus. That's all I have. I'm happy we have a system in place that I can go to wherever I need to go to work. If it takes a little longer, unfortunately, it's coming out of my own pocket. And I need to do what I need to do to get to work, just like a lot of other commuters.
And LRT really helps connect our community, not only within, but to employment centers like downtown, even to the D&D campus at Moody. We need a councillor that's going to fight for our community to ensure that LRT is one of many solutions that's going to make our quality of life much better, make our community much more livable, walkable, access to pedestrian and cycling. These are all part of the future of Kanata North as it pertains to our mobility. We need concrete solutions that work for our community and our growing community, because we need to get cars off the road day in and day out to ease congestion and improve the quality of our roads.
I will just add this. Sorry, Jenna, you go ahead.
Thank you. If I may, I absolutely agree with this statement that our current public transit is inefficient and unreliable. I'm hearing this again and again, door after door. I think the question that we're posed with here is, how do we move forward to ensure that we secure LRT moving forward for Kanata North? That's the task at hand. And the only way that that is going to be possible is by building strong relationships to secure the funding, both at the provincial level, the federal level, and working with City Council to ensure we get that funding in place. We are a growing community, as has been said. Last year, we were the fastest growing suburb in Ottawa. We also have the largest technology park in the country. One of the largest employment nodes is in Kanata North. And ensuring that we can get people in and out of our community and around our community is a top priority.
I think that, and just to finish off my thought that I was going to have there, if they don't serve us in a reasonable time frame with LRT and fix our transit system, putting it off till 2031 to 2048 is an absolutely untenable situation. If we're investing billions of dollars and Kanata taxpayers are paying for it, then I believe we should have that service. If we don't get that service, then please don't ask us to get out of our cars. I'd see the roads rebuilt, the potholes filled, the streets plowed appropriately. If the money isn't going to LRT, then let's make the roads more usable as well.
Okay, we can stop there. And David Gourley, I asked you the question, so you get the last 30 seconds on this.
Sure, Mark. Thank you. So LRT, as I've said, is part of a broader solution for mobility in Kanata North. I want to ensure that not only are we looking at LRT as an option, but we are looking at other infrastructure investments in our community, like widening Terry Fox, improving March Road as well. Tech leaders have told me that they're losing investment opportunities because March Road has too much congestion. It needs a good resurfacing. These are all part of the future of Kanata North, as I've said, and a council that's going to go downtown and fight for those resources to improve our mobility, and LRT is one of those options.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next topic, and I'll direct this question to Loren Neufeld. You brought up in your opening statement the fact that the police budget has been increasing by 2% over the last few years. A lot of people feel that's not enough. So the question is, should the policing budget be increased by a greater annual rate than that? You've got 45 seconds.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, absolutely, it needs to be increased. I'm going door to door, and I'm hearing from a lot of people. I'm reading on social media from a lot of people as well that there are break-ins. A lot of vehicles are being vandalized. Parks are being vandalized. We need to fix that. We need to get a community policing system in again. A lot of the neighborhoods are creating a neighborhood watch, which is absolutely fantastic, but that's just a Band-Aid for the actual problem. What we need to do is we need to get more community officers involved into the community, have a larger awareness, have our neighbors interact with the police a lot more, and to make a greater presence so that we can feel safe and that we know that our neighborhoods are being monitored properly.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on the police budget. You can also talk about how to address gun violence or anything else to do with policing and safety in our community.
Well, I've been singing from this playbook for quite some time. Staffing at the police force now has only been receiving lip service for several years from its own leadership and from the political leadership. I'm lucky to have been endorsed by the Ottawa Police Association. I worked with Vern White, who was our former police chief when I was running in 2014, will again. What I see is the staffing levels have depleted so much while the population has gone up. So per capita, we actually have fewer police officers. Is that a concern in Kanata North? Do we have lots of murders and violent gun crime? No, although we have had our share. But what I do see is down by Ritchie Street or other areas where we've seen gun violence go up, and that is absolutely as a result of not having that proactive policing. Our women and men in blue want to do that proactive kind of policing. Now they're just a reactive police force, and they know it, and they're screaming out to try and get into the communities. In Kanata North, we're supposed to have 2 cars floating around at all times. We don't have that when there's a call across the Greenbelt that requires 3 cars. So I've seen the great service that we get from the police. It is a complaint-based system right now rather than the proactive policing that they could do if they had those staffing resources. Not to mention, it would stop that overtime expenditure of into the $3 million zone. That's where we're losing money on a yearly basis. So yes, fund the staffing appropriately and give us the service that we deserve.
I think this is a great example of where we can go further with our tax dollars. In this campaign, I'm talking about getting better bang for our buck for our taxes. I'm a taxpayer in Kanata North, and I'm very proud of it. I'd like to see a larger police presence, not only to address what I affectionately call petty crime, whether it be teenagers breaking into cars or whether it be individuals scoping out homes like we've seen in Kanata Lakes and across Morgan's Grant, as well as drugs. We need to see a larger police presence. We need to see reallocation of resources before we look at a tax increase and an increased budget for police. I do support more police resources, but I first want to make sure that we are talking to the police service, ensuring they're maximizing their budget, and also looking at speeding in school zones. I support photo radar, but I also support a stronger police presence for those critical times when children and youth are being dropped off at their schools.
If I may, safety in Kanata North is absolutely a priority and has been a topic of conversation at many, many doors, too many doors, to be honest with you. The increase in crime, as well as rampant speeding across our community, is concerning. The police have been underfunded. We know that we have seen slight increases year over year, and we're told that they are increasing the number of police on the roads. Sadly, the reality is that they haven't been able to keep up with the hiring and the training of police officers in order to increase the number that we actually have, while some are retiring. Couple this with the increase, the dramatic increase in the amount of mental health issues that our police force is having to deal with, and they are just taxed. They want to do a better job, but they don't have the resources in place to be able to serve us better. I'm very committed to supporting our police force, as well as some of the good work that some of our community associations are doing, setting up neighborhood watch programs, which I think is a great start. Neighbors looking out for neighbors is always a phenomenal thing to do. But couple that with more police presence and enforcement to ensure that our neighborhoods are safe.
Since photo radar has come up, Mark, may I just touch on that?
Sure.
I know my opponents are in favor of photo radar, and I know there is an argument as to why photo radar might be necessary. I'm not a fan of photo radar in school zones, and I'll tell you one simple reason why. I would much rather that law-abiding citizens have their eyes on the road and not on their speedometer. We know that going 40 is a very slow pace of speed, and there are other reasons why sometimes you might go over by 1 kilometer or be lower by 2. Just on my way here, merging from March Road onto the 417, I myself had to break the speed limit because there was a great big rig beside me, a row of cars behind him. He couldn't move over, so I had to accelerate over the 100-kilometer limit. Does that make me a criminal? I suppose by the letter of the law, but prudent driving, that's common sense, is better than having you looking at the speedometer as you're driving through a school zone. I'd rather innovate other traffic calming measures that help people to realize the speed they're doing. The speed boards are fine, but photo radar, that's an area I don't want. Sometimes a camera cannot capture the common sense of a law-abiding citizen's driving. The vast majority of people are law-abiding citizens. Should my plan to have police resources and staffing increased, then we start putting police there to catch the real offenders of that crime in our school zones and all around our community where we do see speed as an issue.
I have to politely disagree in that there's nothing more important than the safety of our school zones. And photo radar is a simple, cost-effective use of technology that enables us to increase safety within those zones. So respectfully, I believe it's definitely a positive, and I would support bringing it into our community. Of course, police presence is the ultimate. But as we've heard, unfortunately, that's not always the case. And in lieu of that, I do believe that photo radar will keep our kids safe.
I'd also like to just make a statement about crossing guards. There are 3 unfunded crossing guards in Morgan's Grant and Kanata North. I think the next councillor should be very proactive in getting those crossing guards funded, the crosswalks funded with a guard. That also increases safety. It increases parent security about safety. And it's another opportunity for us to take our tax dollars further.
Okay, anyone else? All right, then let's go back to Loren Neufeld. I asked you the question, so you get the final 30 seconds here.
So as Matt was saying, I would rather have those officers, instead of catching people at the speed bumps or at the school zones, go out and actually helping with some of these gun violence, with some of the stuff. Have the photo radar in there to back it up. In regards to crossing guards, absolutely. I would rather see all the kids come home safe instead of having to get hit by some kind of vehicle or other type of traffic obstacle.
Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next question, which I will direct to Matt Muirhead. Would you agree to have a private cannabis store in your ward?
Yes, I would have to, because that's the federal law, and you can't stop a business coming in that's a legitimate and legal business. That'd be like trying to stop the LCBO when prohibition ended. I think as long as we tightly regulate it, that we zone it to keep it away from kids and youth. I don't want to see a cannabis store that isn't super clean, has lots of security for both the proprietor and for the people who use the business. I don't want to see it, let's say, beside a Max Milk or a pizza parlor. These are places that doesn't belong. Let's go to where adults are catered to. Let's zone it appropriately and keep it safe for everyone.
Okay, it's open to everyone now.
I think safety is the #1 priority for Kanata North residents as it relates to this introduction of retail recreational cannabis. I happen to live beside a new development. They're building a senior center, and they're going to be building a retail plaza right across the street from a high school. My #1 priority is safety, and I want to ensure that our municipal government, our city hall, has the opportunity to first introduce a sense of regulation around distance between a retail recreational cannabis store and a child care center, a daycare center, a school, a playground, whatever it may be. I think we're rushing this. I think we need to step back. I think we need to think this through. The provincial government has stated that there is an opt-out clause or an opt-out option as well as an opt-in. If a municipality opts out, it can opt in after. I don't know why we're in such a rush to embrace this when we need to get safety of our children and youth first.
Cannabis is a very new and complex policy issue that we are faced with as a community. And until recently, this wasn't a topic of conversation when I was canvassing at people's doors. The reality is there are some that are expressing concerns, rightly so, around the location and the ease of access that could be granted to our youth, for example, when retail stores do open. But on the flip side, I'm also hearing residents express a desire for a safe stream of cannabis for those that need it, that we know and can trust is not laced with other terrible substances. So I believe we do need to proceed with caution, absolutely. These aren't easy decisions. We need to ensure that we put pressure and we work with the province to make sure that they get the legislation right, that we know as far as zoning, for example, inspection, health, that we know what the parameters are and that they are consulted within our community and acceptable within our community.
I think we're all going to have to get our heads around this idea of cannabis, because I've come through the education system as the rest of you have. And I've been an educator for 18 years, and I've educated against the use of such drugs. And yes, we've seen even a friend of my daughter's out at All Saints. Tragically, you know, there's overdosing going on, stuff like that. we have to get our heads around what is this new reality, this new pot regime. And I think it comes with education, because the youth in particular, the most vulnerable, should they use it. That's where the propensity for schizophrenia comes in, or as we've always heard, gateway drugs. Can a responsible adult user take this on and be responsible? We want to make sure they're educated. We want to make sure that the business model is fair, but definitely regulate, keep it away from youth, keep the education system going. Understand, though, that this is our new reality. One way or the other, this is something we're going to have to deal with across the country, and I think it behooves a city councillor to really be thoughtful, be mindful. I'm not a cannabis user, but I know there are people in the community who are. Some for medical reasons, and obviously some will be for recreational reasons. I have to get my head around that as a community leader and understand where people are at and meet them where they're at and serve them.
With a lot of these cannabis shops that are coming up, though, that's more so recreational. There are different streams for both medical and recreational. I do feel that we need to have the same level, if not higher, than we currently do with the LCBO. In those areas, I have no issues with there being a cannabis retail shop around an LCBO, because again, it is becoming illegal, and you know, there's many arguments against on how bad it is for you, or that it's a gateway drug, but as we all know, alcohol can do the exact same thing. And I feel that as long as it's done in moderation, which some of us can deal with, some of us can't, but if we have it within those areas, I feel that that's adequate enough to facilitate the cannabis retail shops.
Again, it's a bit of the unknown, right? So I think, you know, guided by advice and statements by public health officials, by police officials across Ontario and here in Ottawa, I think it's important for us to really think this through very carefully. That's consistent with what other candidates are saying as well. It's really important for us as a municipal government, to exercise some authority and accountability as well, and power, and ensure that we have our own specific regulations in place before we allow recreational cannabis. It's still going to be available online as recreational cannabis, but I'm speaking about in the stores, in the stores across Kanata North. I think it's important for us to really step back and think this through very carefully for the safety and security of our children and youth.
And let's not overlook the implications as well on our police force as these cannabis retail stores open and as it becomes readily available. We know that there will be challenges posed on the police force as far as enforcement, as far as driving under the influence. And we've got some big challenges there. So I think it's very important as this moves forward and we work with the province that we ensure the funding is also in place to empower and give our police force the tools that they need to ensure that they keep our community safe and our roads safe at the same time.
Okay, we can stop there. Matt Muirhead, I asked you the question, so we can go back to you for the final 30 seconds here.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, as I've said in my other answers, I think it just requires a thoughtful response. For those people who are going to be responsible users, like Lorne says, if you're using something in moderation, yes, as you know, we don't want to make sure people aren't driving impaired and all those things. But I think there has to be a reasonable assumption that this is a business model that is coming. So it's our duty to make it work for the community and work for the people who are the proprietors and work for the people who are the users of the recreational substance.
Okay, thank you. Jenna Sudds, next question is to you. Let's talk about the city's finances. If it were up to you, where would you set tax increases over the next 4 years? And how would you address what some people feel is mounting pressure on expenditure areas like infrastructure and social services?
Thank you, Mark. Our city has a budget of $3.4 billion. So, you know, this is a huge responsibility. As an economist by study, I understand and appreciate the value of every penny that is earned. And I'm hearing from our community concerns around affordability. And so I'm a mom of 3 kids. I understand the rising cost of living and raising children in our community. I believe that we need to set realistic expectations. We have historically, over the last number of years, geared ourselves toward this 2% increase. I don't believe 2% is the right answer. I believe that we need to build the budget from the bottom up.
We can open it up to everyone and you can keep going.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jenna?
Yeah,
go
if
ahead.
you want to finish what you were saying, go ahead,
sure.
because it's open to everyone now.
Fantastic. I'll just close quickly to say, I believe we need to have more consultation and build the budget from the bottom up in order to be able to address those priorities from our communities, as opposed to building or pushing the budget from the top down.
I think it's important for us to consider affordability. People earn their money. They work hard to earn their money. We need better value for our tax dollars. We need a better champion at City Hall to talk about Kanata North priorities, to understand the budget process and fight for it. Mark had mentioned infrastructure. We also have a very unique mosquito tax, a levy in Kanata North that no one else across the city has. That's about value for money. Does it need to be a tax? I support the program. I pay that tax. But is it worth being a tax when perhaps we can find money in the Treasury, particularly when we just had a summer like we had where so many people across Kanata North complained that the program was not effective. I'm sure many of us who were knocking on doors were bitten by many mosquitoes as well. I know I was. So when it comes to taxes, we have to be very clear about what is the target, what is the cap, and most importantly, what are our priorities as a community by listening to the people, the stakeholders, the organizations that do business in Kanata. What is it they're looking for from a tax value?
I think the 2% is fine, because as long as it's following inflation, if we need to increase it at a later date, we can, as of right now. But what we need to do is we need to focus our dollars. Right now it's being spent any which way, and we need to really focus that. We need to get someone in there that will say, we want value for our money. We don't want to just keep paying for it, when there's other places in the city that are getting a lot more value for their dollar. And the community of Kanata North is not. I am a huge proponent of the mosquito program, but like David was saying, I do think that we should be able to find that amount of money somewhere else in the public coffers, because there are other places within the city that are getting special treatment that we are paying into. So I see no reason why something as small as 1.5 million would not be able to be done for our area, and I think we just need to focus our dollars better.
So if I may, I wonder if voters would prefer someone who would go in and challenge the status quo at City Hall, as opposed to those who might favor a political career. I'm a teacher, not a millionaire, but I want to get in there and challenge the status quo, and that means challenging leadership like Mayor Jim Watson. That means challenging leadership like City Manager Steve Kanalakos. When we're dealing with a $3.42 billion operating budget, the numbers become so large that it becomes difficult for the common person to say, well, how are you going to get $3.42 billion in revenue? I think we start with the budget process being wide open. Let's start out at a 2% tax cap. While that might be a laudable goal, what's happened in the past 12 years is we've tripled the city debt. The piper must be paid eventually. It's just a fact that somehow we've got to pay all of this money eventually. So tripling the city debt is not ideal. Keeping a 2% tax increase, okay, but then they've done that in the back room. The mayor and the city management go into the back room, create a budget, then present the budget to the councillors, of whom there are 23 and the mayor. 23 people of whom he asks at that time, if you want to add something to this budget, find something to cut. Well, why aren't we having that debate before this phony construction of a 2% tax cap that increases debt at the same time? It is the quintessential false economy. The 2% tax does not include transit levies that have gone up higher than that, 2.5%. Doesn't include recreational fees that have gone up. Doesn't include our water and sewer fees, not to mention our provincial services like Hydro One and Hydro Ottawa. These services are all costing us all more every year. Let's start at the bottom and see where we can find savings. And if I may just finish that, I see savings already in councillors' office budgets. You could lead by example. A councillor gets an office budget of $250,000 per year, so that's times 23, and the mayor gets more. If I could ask council to cut just $50,000 from that, so a 20% decrease, we could save $4.8 million per term of council. For that $4.8 million, I could see tax reductions, I could see service increases, I could see more cops on the street. It's just about getting in there, finding out where the numbers are, and then making that happen for people. That's the business of a city council, is to serve people. And that's what this city is here to do, and that's what we're here to do.
And on that point, Matt, the city councillor's budget, as you've alluded to, being roughly, I believe Mary Ann's was $220,000. That's to run the office of the councillor, but that is also the salaries of any staff that works within the councillor's office. So I'm sure that you can appreciate that cutting $50,000, although it sounds great, is going to mean less service from the councillor's office.
You're aware that some councillors have used that office budget, $90,000, to advertise themselves on a bus shelter.
And
or the
I
strip
wouldn't
along the bottom of
support,
the strip along the bottom of a newspaper that we get every week is paid for by taxpayers. So that office budget is being used
the
for
important
self-promotion.
part is to make
Cut
sure that
bit.
it's used well. My viewpoint on this is to make sure that the councillor has the resources they need, the staff that they need, to make sure that first and foremost that residents are well served.
I can staff mine for $50,000 less than the budget.
That's fascinating. So the other thing that would be great is for the City of Ottawa to actually procure technology that is made right here in Kanata North. That would go a long way to reducing our expenses and our expenditures instead of looking at councillors' offices, which sure we can do. That's a possibility, it may not be. It's time for the City of Ottawa to invest locally. It's time for the City of Ottawa to invest in Kanata North by making sure procurement looks seriously at some of the wonderful technology and innovation solutions that are made right here in our community. And that may go a long way to saving us taxpayers money in the long run.
And I think that if we did cut some money here and there, that we wouldn't have to necessarily have so much areas where we're spending money on Kanata North picnics and other things, but other giving the people value for their money.
Okay. Jenna Sudds, you get the last 30 seconds on this. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again and again, I have heard that residents feel like we've been forgotten. I believe we need to focus on getting the basics right. Whether that's our road maintenance, our snow clearing, garbage removal, recycling. Let's focus on the basics. Let's consult and build the budget from the bottom up and make sure every penny is spent wisely.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next question now, which I'll direct to David Gourley. Should the city have played a more proactive role on the opioid crisis and the supervised injection sites that were created by volunteers? Should the city, for example, now be looking to support more supervised injection sites rather than have what happened last summer when a pop-up injection site was created in a city park?
Well, we don't need to go very far to be compassionate and emotional about safe injection sites than Kanata North. We've had our fair share of challenges and struggles, and I think that it's unfortunate we need safe injection sites, but we do. I am a believer, a strong proponent of them. I believe they play a very important role in our city, in our community, in addition to the people who work there, the volunteers, staff, Ottawa Public Health, and all their partners. So I do believe that the city should continue funding them. I will fight the province of Ontario to continue funding them as well.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on this topic.
Sure, I'll pipe in. We currently have 4 safe injection sites in Ottawa. And I'll be honest, I'm not hearing a lot about concerns around this as I'm going around Kanata North canvassing. I am hearing concerns more around access and use of drug use in Kanata with our youth in particular. But I believe these 4 sites, they're saving lives. And that is what is important to me. It is our duty as a city to make sure the most vulnerable in our community are taken care of, and that's what these sites are doing. I do believe moving forward, we do need to talk about this more as a community. I do believe with challenges with our provincial government and potential funding model being at risk, we certainly need to have broader discussion and consultation how to move this forward safely, but top of mind always is ensuring we save lives.
Well, the research has really shown that the Insight program does work. Whether you're talking about the east side of Vancouver, these programs are saving lives. They also allow people to come into a safe environment where the next step one would hope is that they find treatment and support and care and food. The concerns that we have in the city generally are where these Insight locations are situated. Because what we've seen in the past number of years as well is needles on the ground, needles not being picked up. We've had community volunteers, some of whom I know, going around and having to pick up these dirty needles. Can we lower that incidence by having people go to these in-site facilities? I would suggest yes. So I think as long as we have the safety of the broader community in mind and compassion for the people who are addicted to drugs. People don't choose to be that severely addicted to drugs that they have to go to this facility to use. So I think it behooves us to try and protect them in a way from themselves sometimes. Try to get them into treatment, and I want to see more treatment beds in this city. Some more restorative ways for people to rejoin society and get out of that vicious cycle that is only downhill. If we can lift them up, then I think we are a better society as a whole. We live with kindness and compassion every day for everyone, and that's what we want to see here in the city of Ottawa.
With these injection sites right now, they do have a lot of literature at them, and they do have a lot of trained professionals that will help them go the next step if they choose to do so. I think it's an absolutely fantastic program. Like Matt was saying, they're all over Canada right now. The numbers don't lie. They are helping people. We need to really focus on that, because there are a lot of people that may not be able to see a needle or that may not be aware of one and then accidentally get stabbed. And I feel that having some kind of paying the money for the injection sites compared to having to pay for the long-term treatment of someone that had a dirty needle and ended up contracting something from that is definitely cost savings in the long run.
That's a very good point.
From a public health perspective, though, it's not just about supervised injection sites, obviously. It's about, and more specifically for parents in Kanata who might have teenage children, it's about addressing the opioid crisis. So what are some of the solutions there, do you think?
Again, education. Sorry to ever cut you off.
Go ahead.
But because I'm a teacher and my daughter goes to All Saints, and that's where we lost a student. And it was all part of those little pills that are labeled with a P to look like they're Percocet. And someone takes it at a party, and it's got 1 grain of that carfentanil or fentanyl in it, and it is tragedy. And I think we need to educate our youth. Of course, that's what I'm doing already in the classes that I teach. But on a larger scale, as a city councillor, that would be where I would work with my education partners, school boards, and other facilities where we just need to let these teenagers in particular know, look, there's a very, very real danger here. Do not take a prescription drug that you think you got from your parents' house, because there are painkillers. People are on these legitimate painkillers for after surgeries and etc. But bringing something there is irresponsible, first of all, but is also deadly dangerous if you don't know exactly what you're taking. And as we know, I mean, now naloxone kits are everywhere to try and revive people who've overdosed. This is a very serious crisis. It's countrywide, and I think we could do the best by addressing it with education.
And I think, another layer to that is the good work of Ottawa Public Health and ensuring that Ottawa Public Health and our nurses are equipped and are ready to assist within the community. The big education piece, I think, is huge, and these public health nurses supporting our teachers, supporting the students, but also supporting the families that are just rife with grief when they're challenged with these situations. I think there's a bigger role to be played there. And as a councillor, ensuring the oversight to ensure that that does happen, ensure that the families that need help are getting it, and the students that are struggling are pointed to the resources that can help them get back on their feet.
Helping the kids are fine, but we also need to help the parents as well. We need to show them exactly what to look for. We need to teach them, if you see something like that, how to use an naloxone kit properly, how to see what your kid is doing, how to help your kid more so, because it's great that it's helping in the school level, but we also need to teach them at the community level as well.
And this is where a neighborhood watch program can be perhaps expanded beyond its traditional scope and thought process of what a neighborhood watch program is. It could incorporate some of these challenges that we potentially could see more. Everything we've been talking about is the same in the context of parents and schools. That's all very important. The councillor needs to be a champion. I said earlier, councillor is a convener. A councillor is an enabler. A councillor is a champion, and this is a very important part of that role, to bring people together, to talk about these issues and these challenges seriously, and work with different partners to make sure that we reduce the risk of overdose in our community of Kanata North.
Okay, anyone else on that? All right, I asked you the question, David. I don't know if you want another 30 seconds on this, but you're entitled to it.
I will work hard in Canada North to ensure that we bring our partners together to address illegal drugs, not only from a criminal aspect, but also from a prevention standpoint as well. I want to ensure that, as I've said earlier, the councillor is a champion working with all partners.
Okay, let's leave it there, and I will direct the next question to Loren Neufeld. Do you support the creation of a Women's Bureau at City Hall, and what other steps do you think are necessary to ensure there is an emphasis on equality and diversity in the decisions that city government makes?
So as I've said in every single one of my surveys, I agree 100% that there should be a Women's Bureau. I feel that women in council spots, as well as in all forms of government, is absolutely critical. We need to have voices from all parties, all walks of life, all types of people. And I have no issues with that. I think what we need to do is we need to focus on getting all the groups together, including women's bureaus, people with certain disabilities, as well as seniors and just the general public, and come together as a consortium and as a democracy originally how it's supposed to be, and walk that line and figure out what exactly we need to do to help every single person so that we can move forward and that we can make the best community that we can possibly make.
All right, it's open to everyone now.
So I can't resist, but I'm sad that we're having this conversation. I'm sad that our last council, our current council, we had 4 women of 24 elected officials. I believe, and I'm walking it, living it firsthand, there are barriers that are tough. This is not easy as a woman. And I think, not only women, but ensuring that we champion diversity at our council table, as well as within the executive and within city staff, is paramount. Ensuring that it is reflective of our society that we're serving is first and foremost the most important issue.
Inclusion and reducing barriers is such a priority for me. That's why I co-founded the Miracle League of Ottawa for special needs youth across our city. The facility eliminates all barriers. It allows children and youth with special needs to fully enjoy inclusion. There's a canteen that we don't serve the children and youth. They go and do it themselves. The washrooms, change rooms have hydraulic lifts and change tables. It is Ottawa's only fully inclusive recreation space for children and youth. And I apply the same principle of inclusion, reducing barriers to women, to support diversity as well in our community and across the City of Ottawa. It's so critical that leadership positions at the City of Ottawa, from an employment standpoint, take into account diversity, takes into account women. We have to do more to eliminate barriers. I agree with Jenna. It's sad we have to have this conversation. Let's embrace it. Let's get to the root problem. Let's make sure that we're addressing this as quickly and as strongly as possible.
I think it's a good idea, definitely. I want to know what are the barriers for women. Obviously, I can imagine already. I've been married, and I have a mother, I have 2 sisters, and I'm an educator. I realize some of the barriers. I think this is just a starting point. I think when we're looking at the Women's Bureau, yes, let's provide equal outcome. Now, I will couch this by saying equal outcome, or equal opportunity does not equal outcome. You do not provide that opportunity and hope that, say, like in a cabinet, let's say that Justin Trudeau has, where he says he has to have 50-50. That is not the ideal. The ideal is to provide equal opportunity. It doesn't necessarily guarantee the outcome. So this is, as I say, a starting point, because I'm looking at other things like various cultures, faiths, religions, ages, the LGBTQ plus community. How are they being represented as well? Because you want to see faces in your local government that you can relate to as well. And I'm an immigrant. I come from England. I know I look the way I do, and it was very easy for me to slide into here because I already spoke the language. But we have such a diverse community in Canada North, and that's why when I was president of the Briarbrook Morgan's Grant Community Association, I ran multicultural festivals. I always want to bring people together and figure out a way to communicate with them. And I feel that the privilege that I've been bestowed in my life makes it my responsibility now to serve every single person that I can, no matter age, no matter faith, no matter culture. And I think that's where the Women's Bureau might be a good starting point. In fact, it may have an end point where we start to jump off into how are we representing the entire community? Are we recruiting? Are we going out into all the various diverse communities, whether it's Chinese or Pakistani or Indian? How are we serving all of these people? Are we meeting them where they're at? Are we actually giving them the service that they deserve? Not just the Anglophiles like myself, who tries desperately to speak all of these other languages while canvassing. And it's my pleasure to serve so many people in such a diverse community.
I think the diversity of Kanata North, it's very true. And that's why I've been speaking at the doors about ensuring that multicultural organizations and groups can leverage the park space that we have, some of the beautiful nature and green space that we have to celebrate their faiths and be encouraged to. I go back to what I said earlier. The councillor is an enabler, a convener, is a facilitator, brings people together. And this is a great example and opportunity of bringing the diversity and showcasing and championing inclusion meaningfully.
I think I'd like to go back to the original question around the establishment of the Women's Bureau or not at City Hall. If we look at the current election, only 19% of candidates are female, for example. The diversity of the candidates that we currently have is not reflective of our population within the city. We have a lot of work to do to ensure that our elected officials and our city staff are representative of our community. One way to start down that path and start that discussion is the Women's Bureau. All that to say, I do agree. I hope it evolves to be more of a diversity discussion, ensuring that all people are represented within our city. But as I said, I recognize the challenges being a female and running in this campaign. This is not easy. As early as today, before this debate started, there's comments about what I'm wearing and whether it's appropriate. There are a lot of biases that we have to face, and I'm facing them head on, but I understand why a lot of women and a lot of people in our community choose not to.
Okay, anyone else on that? Let me ask you a quick follow-up question. We don't have a lot of time, so maybe you can each take a few seconds on this. The ward boundary review is coming up in the next term of council. There's the whole debate in Toronto over the size of city council. Is there anything you'd change about the size and structure of city council? Let's give you each maybe 15 seconds on that.
I'm having a problem keeping track of what the provincial position on this issue is. I'm looking forward to the ward boundary review. I think it's going to require a lot of consultation. I'd like to hear from people. They're not really talking in Kanata North. They're not talking about it at the doors necessarily.
All right. Loren Neufeld?
Yeah, kind of what Dave was saying is, it's changing by the day depending on his mood. But I'd like to try to talk to the community a little bit more. I haven't been getting that at the door as well. I think that we need to focus more so on asking our communities what we think, and then we can get a better position.
Matt Muirhead?
Yeah, I think it's all about service. So I know, for example, that if I was to be called to serve as councillor, there are so many small issues, as well as the big ones, that need addressing, whether it's grass cutting or accessibility issues, picking up garbage in the parks that I drive by and see they're overflowing. I think the service is something that we need, so might need more.
Jenna?
The geography of Ottawa is massive, such that we are a huge city. And what we are expected to cover and serve as a councillor is much larger than other cities. So I'm not hearing this as a concern at the doors. I'm open to the conversation when it happens.
Okay. Loren Neufeld, did you want more time on anything that we've just talked about?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, why don't we just stop there? Thank you. We're going to move to the closing statements now. And again, we'll do those in the reverse order of the opening statements, which was determined at random before our telecast. Each candidate will have 1 minute to speak to you, and we will start with Jenna Sudds. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am humbled by the support and the encouragement that I've received throughout this campaign, and that has gotten me to this point so far. I never envisioned myself as running for City Council. This was not part of my plan, but I couldn't be happier that I've taken this plunge and I am on this path. Politics can be unkind and it can be messy. When I set down this path, I sat down and I wrote my code of conduct. And every day I hold myself and my team accountable for that code of conduct. If I earn your support as your councillor, you can expect me to lead with integrity, to provide vision and leadership for our community, and above all else, a dedication to serve you, the community. This is what sets me apart. This is what's gotten to me where I am so far, and I'm committed to continuing to serve our community.
All right, thank you. Next up is Matt Muirhead.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you for hosting. Thank you to the candidates. Instead of closing, and your timer's not on, but just wanted to let you know that. All right.
Go ahead.
So, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you can still go ahead.
that's awkward now.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to address something that I haven't had a chance to because the questions haven't come this way. But I also feel that in this particular race, it's my responsibility to carry on Bill Tarrant's vision. Bill Tarrant, as you know, was the father of Kanata, and it's his vision in Beaverbrook that is the gem of Kanata North. And I feel that its development is the single biggest issue in Kanata North. So what we've seen has been rampant deforestation. I call it moonscaping because where the pathways used to be, you come out now and it looks like another planet. People used to walk their dogs there and jog there. I don't like the way we do this rampant, full-scale deforestation and then put in cookie-cutter buildings with narrower garages, shorter driveways, narrower streets and parking all over the place. I live in Kanata North. I'm looking forward to serving you. I know every corner of our ward, and I'm looking forward to serving the people of Kanata North. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Next up is Loren Neufeld. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
I want to thank you for having me as well. So again, as a prairie boy, I definitely want to see the green space. I think that the green space absolutely needs to stay there. I'm an avid angler. I love to go fishing as much as I can during the summer as well as in the wintertime. I think that we need to see that green space and we need to have those walking paths. I use them quite frequently to walk both my dogs, and they just absolutely love it on top of their work. I think that we need to see that, and we need to have a stronger opinion on transit. We don't need LRT right now because it's not going to come right now. We need to focus on the bus system. We need to make a better accessible transit. We are having a lot of seniors, a lot of families that are coming that don't have vehicles. We need to see that because you can talk and talk and talk, but at the end of the day, you're still standing out there in front of all the elements. You're still waiting for that bus that never shows up. And as a councillor that would be taking public transit on a daily basis, I would definitely fix that.
Okay, thank you. Finally, David Gourley, you have 1 minute as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. My name is David Gourlay. I'm your neighbor and I'm your champion. Over the past 6 to 9 months, you've welcomed me into your homes. You've offered me water in the plus 45-degree weather in July. We've had a lot of really engaging discussions about our future together. I've been inspired by that. I've been inspired by the fact that you welcome me because I am from Kanata North and I currently choose to live there, raising a family. I'm also very grateful to my honorary co-chairs, Beth Malak and Cyril Leader, for their confidence. In the tradition of Kanata North, putting people first, Bill Tarrant, John Malak, Marianne Wilkinson, and Terry Matthews, these are leaders whose legacies will live on. And we have an obligation as a community to come together and inform and populate what we believe to be our future together. And the councillor is an enabler, is a convener, is a person that can bring people together to achieve great things into our future. Thank you.
All right, thank you to all the candidates for participating in the debate. Good luck in the rest of the campaign. That wraps up our debate for Kanata North, Ward 4. I want to remind you that Election Day is October the 22nd, and we will have live coverage of the results right here on Rogers TV and on 1310 News Radio as soon as the polls close at 8 o'clock. I hope you can join us then. Thank you for watching.